The space station floated quietly around the giant gas planet called Kepler 442b. It was a mining station, built to dig valuable metals from the planet's moons. 12,000 people lived there, coming from 7 different alien races across the galaxy. They worked together, traded goods, and built homes far from their birth worlds. Captain Lisa Martinez stood in the main control room, watching the stars through the big windows. She was the only human on the station, sent there by Earth to help keep peace between the different species. Her job was usually easy and boring. Today was different. 6 days ago, enemy ships had appeared from nowhere. They came out of hyperspace like angry ghosts, their black hulls blocking out the stars. The Krillian Dominion had found the station, and they wanted it destroyed. Commander Zethkar clicked his 6 arms against the control panels. He was the station leader, a tall blue creature with multiple eyes that could see in many directions at once. His people, the Vorthons, were peaceful traders who had never hurt anyone. They did not know how to fight a real war. "Another transport ship is gone," Zethkar said through his translator device. The machine turned his clicking sounds into words Lisa could understand. The Krillians destroyed it before it could reach the jump point. Lisa watched the explosion on the main screen. The ship had been carrying families trying to escape to safety. Men, women, and children from different worlds, all dead in a flash of orange fire. She felt sick and angry at the same time. Dr. Sam Rodriguez ran into the control room. He was a short man with gray hair who fixed all the station's machines. Sweat covered his face, and his hands shook as he spoke. "The shield generators are failing," he said. "We have maybe 30% power left. If they hit us again with their big guns, we're all dead." The Krillians had been attacking for 6 days straight. Their ships were large and covered in weapons that shot deadly beams of light. Every few hours they would fire at the station, slowly breaking down its defenses. They seemed to enjoy making the attack last a long time. Lisa had sent distress signals to every friendly ship within 100 light years. Some had answered, promising to send help, but the nearest fleet was 3 weeks away. The Galactic Council moved slowly, always talking and making committees before they acted. By the time help arrived, there would be nothing left to save. "Why are they doing this?" asked Dr. Amy Foster, the station's medical chief. She was treating wounded people in the hospital levels below. "We're just miners and traders. We never hurt anyone." Zethkar's 3 main eyes focused on her. "The Krillians do not need reasons. They are predators who take what they want. Our station sits on valuable trade routes. They want us gone so they can control this space." The Krillians were known across the galaxy as bullies and murderers. They had powerful ships and strong weapons, but they only attacked weaker targets. They would never fight someone who could fight back with equal strength. The station had only small defensive guns, nothing that could hurt a real warship. Lisa looked at the tactical display showing enemy positions. 15 Krillian ships surrounded the station in a perfect circle. Their formation was designed to prevent any escape. Every few minutes, one would fire a warning shot that hit the shields, slowly draining their power. "Captain Martinez," said Lieutenant Dan Cooper, the communication officer, "I'm getting strange readings on the long-range sensors. Something big is moving toward us from the outer system." Lisa felt her heart jump. Maybe one of the distress calls had reached someone with faster ships. "Can you identify it?" Cooper shook his head. "The signal is too weak. Whatever it is, it's still very far away, but it's moving fast, faster than anything I've seen before." Suddenly, the communication array came alive with static and noise. Through the crackling sounds, a voice spoke in clear English. The accent was from Earth's southern regions, calm and confident despite the danger. "Kepler Station, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the UHS Thunderbolt. We received your distress call. Hold tight, help is coming." The control room fell completely silent. Everyone stared at the speakers as if they could not believe what they had heard. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. She had sent the distress call to every human ship in the area, but none were supposed to be close enough to help. "Did he say UHS?" whispered Dr. Rodriguez. "That's a military ship designation." Lisa nodded, trying to control her excitement. The United Human Ship classification meant this was a warship from Earth's fleet. But what was a human military vessel doing so far from home? The nearest human colonies were months away from this sector. Zethkar looked confused. I thought your people only had exploration ships in this part of space. How can they help us fight the Krillians? Before Lisa could answer, the enemy fleet began moving. The Krillian ships had detected the incoming signal and were preparing for battle, their weapons powered up, glowing with deadly energy. Whatever was coming, they were ready to destroy it. Warlord Thexmore commanded the Krillian fleet from his flagship. He was a cruel leader who enjoyed destroying peaceful settlements. His 3 red eyes gleamed with pleasure as he planned the final attack on the station. One human ship against my entire fleet? He laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. These mammals must be insane. Prepare all weapons. We will destroy this newcomer, then finish our work here. The Krillian ships moved into attack formation. Their guns turned toward the edge of the system, waiting for the human vessel to appear. They had fought humans before in small battles. Human ships were tough, but not special. This would be an easy victory. Lisa watched the tactical display, praying that Captain Morrison knew what he was doing. 1 ship against 15 was suicide, no matter how brave the crew might be. But something in the captain's voice had sounded confident, almost eager for the fight. All civilians to the emergency shelters, she ordered. This is going to get dangerous very quickly. As the station's people moved to safety, Lisa stayed in the control room with the essential crew. Outside the windows, the Krillian ships waited, like hungry wolves. Somewhere in the darkness beyond, a human warship was racing toward certain death. She wondered if Captain Morrison had any idea what he was flying into. The Krillians were not peaceful traders or weak pirates. They were professional killers with powerful ships and no mercy for their enemies. But as Lisa watched the stars, she felt a strange sense of hope. Humans had surprised the galaxy before, with their stubbornness and refusal to give up. Maybe, just maybe, they were about to do it again. The Krillian sensor operator screamed in alarm. His clawed hands shook as he stared at his display screen. Something massive was approaching from the edge of the solar system, moving at speeds that should have been impossible. Warlord Thexmore, we have a contact, the operator said, his voice cracking with fear. It's big, sir. Bigger than anything in our database. Thexmore walked over to look at the readings. His red eyes widened as he saw the numbers. The approaching object was decelerating from near light speed, going from unimaginable velocity to almost stopped in just a few minutes. No known technology could handle those forces without being crushed. Show me, he ordered. The main screen switched to long-range sensors. At first, there was nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then, something began to take shape in the darkness. It started as a small dot, growing larger and more detailed as it came closer. The human warship emerged from hyperspace like a monster rising from the deep ocean. The UHS Thunderbolt was enormous, stretching almost 2 kilometers from nose to tail. Its hull was dark gray metal covered in scars from old battles. Weapon ports lined its sides like the eyes of some ancient predator. On the ship's hull, painted in white letters, were the names of previous fights: New Berlin, Titan's Gate, the Proxima War, Cygnus Station. Each name told a story of human victory against impossible odds. The Thunderbolt was not beautiful like ships from other species. It was not elegant or graceful. It was built for one purpose only: to destroy enemy vessels and protect human interests. Every line of its design spoke of violence and determination. Inside Kepler Station, everyone with access to external cameras stared in shock and wonder. The human ship dwarfed even the largest Krillian dreadnought. Its shadow fell across the entire battlefield, blocking out whole sections of stars. Dr. Rodriguez whistled softly. I've seen pictures of human military ships, but nothing like this. How did they build something so massive? Commander Zethkar studied the vessel with all 6 of his eyes. The humans have been busy since they joined the galactic community. This ship represents technology we have never seen before. Captain Martinez felt a mixture of pride and worry. She was proud that her people had built such an impressive warship. But she was worried about what the other species would think when they learned how powerful human military forces had become. The communication channel crackled to life again. Captain Morrison's voice was calm and professional, like a man ordering coffee instead of facing 15 enemy warships. Krillian vessels. This is the United Human Ship Thunderbolt. You are attacking civilians in violation of Galactic Law Section 12. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The bridge of the Thunderbolt was surprisingly quiet for a warship about to enter battle. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair, his fingers drumming slowly on the armrest. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm blue eyes that had seen too many battles. Commander Katie Sullivan stood beside him, checking status reports on her tablet. She was his second in command, a woman who had served with him for 10 years. Her face showed no emotion as she prepared for combat. "Captain, all systems are green," reported Lieutenant Alex Chen from the weapons station. "Main railgun is charged and ready. Secondary batteries are online. Point defense systems are active." Morrison nodded. "Very good, Mr. Chen. Mr. Kim, what's our tactical situation?" Lieutenant Sarah Kim looked up from her sensor station. 15 enemy ships in standard attack formation. They have us outnumbered, but their weapons appear to be standard plasma and particle beam technology. Nothing we haven't faced before." The captain smiled slightly. Standard technology was putting it mildly. The Krillian weapons were the same designs used across the galaxy for the past 1,000 years. They were effective against ships with similar defenses, but the Thunderbolt was not a similar ship. On the Krillian flagship, Warlord Thexmore laughed at the human demands. One ship against his entire fleet was suicide. The humans must have lost their minds to attempt such a hopeless attack. "These mammals think they can threaten us," he snarled. "Open fire. Destroy them." The Krillian fleet opened up with everything they had. Dozens of energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space toward the human ship. The weapons hit the Thunderbolt's shields in brilliant explosions of light and energy. The crew of the Thunderbolt barely noticed the attack. "Commander," Sullivan checked her displays and shook her head in disappointment. "Shields holding at 96%, Captain. Their weapons are about as effective as flashlights." Morrison was not surprised. Human shield technology was generations ahead of anything the Krillians possessed. The enemy weapons simply did not have enough power to break through the Thunderbolts' defenses. "Return fire, Mr. Chen. Target their flagship. Let's show them what human engineering looks like." The Thunderbolt's main weapon was a magnetic railgun that ran almost the entire length of the ship. When it fired, it accelerated a tungsten projectile to 15% of light speed using powerful magnetic fields. The kinetic energy alone was equal to a nuclear bomb. The weapon fired with a flash of blue light. There was no sound in space, but everyone watching could imagine the thunder of such a massive gun. The projectile crossed the distance between ships in less than a second. The Krillian flagship simply disappeared. One moment it was there, a proud warship bristling with weapons. The next moment, it was an expanding cloud of hot gas and metal fragments. The shockwave from the impact sent nearby ships spinning through space. "Direct hit," reported Chen. "Target destroyed." The remaining Krillian ships stopped firing, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Their most powerful vessel, commanded by their greatest warlord, had been erased from existence by a single shot. On Kepler Station, the observers watched in silent amazement. Dr. Foster spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did that really just happen? They destroyed a dreadnought with one shot?" Captain Martinez nodded slowly. "Human kinetic weapons. We don't use energy beams like everyone else. We throw chunks of metal at relativistic speeds." Commander Zethkar was speechless. In all his years of military service, he had never seen such devastating firepower. The human ship had just demonstrated technology that made the rest of the galaxy's weapons look like children's toys. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication channel again, still calm despite having just destroyed an enemy capital. "Ship Krillian vessels. You have 10 seconds to begin withdrawal. This is your only warning." But the Krillians were not ready to retreat. They were a proud warrior race who had never been defeated by a single enemy ship. Their remaining commanders ordered a full attack, determined to overwhelm the human vessel through sheer numbers. 14 ships against 1. The odds still seemed to favor the Krillians, at least on paper, but as they would soon learn, humans did not believe in fair fights. They believed in winning no matter what it took. The Thunderbolt's secondary weapons began to power up, their targeting systems locking onto multiple enemy vessels. Captain Morrison had given the Krillians a chance to leave peacefully. They had chosen violence instead. Now they would learn why that was a mistake. The Krillians attacked with desperate fury. Their remaining 14 ships fired everything they had at the human warship. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic rounds filled the space around the Thunderbolt with deadly light. Captain Morrison watched the incoming fire on his tactical display with calm interest. The enemy weapons looked impressive, creating a spectacular light show as they struck his ship's shields. But appearances could be deceiving. "Damage report," he said quietly. Commander Sullivan checked her screens without any sign of worry. "Shields holding steady at 95%, Captain. We've taken more damage from space debris." The Thunderbolt's defensive systems were a marvel of human engineering. The shields used technology that the rest of the galaxy had not even imagined yet. The ship could probably sit still and let the Krillians fire at it for hours without taking serious damage. But Captain Morrison had not come here to play defense. He had come to rescue civilians and teach the Krillians a lesson they would never forget. "All weapons engage at will," he ordered. "Show them what human military doctrine looks like." Lieutenant Chen's fingers moved across his weapons console with practiced skill. "Aye, sir. Engaging multiple targets. Secondary railguns charging." The Thunderbolt carried dozens of smaller railguns in addition to its massive main weapon. Each one could punch through the hull of an enemy ship like a bullet through paper. But the humans had learned long ago that raw firepower was only part of winning a battle. The ship's computer systems were equally impressive. Advanced artificial intelligence guided every shot, calculating trajectory, enemy movement, and optimal targeting points faster than any organic brain could think. The targeting computers could predict where an enemy ship would be several seconds before it got there. The secondary guns opened fire in a synchronized barrage. Tungsten slugs accelerated to incredible speeds, each one guided by its own AI system. The Krillian ships tried to dodge, but their movements had been predicted and calculated before they even began to turn. One by one, the enemy vessels began to die. The human projectiles tore through their hulls, destroying engines, weapons, and life support systems. Some ships exploded immediately, others drifted helplessly as their power failed and their crews suffocated in the vacuum of space. "Target destroyed," Chen reported as another Krillian ship vanished in a ball of fire. "Acquiring new target." Lieutenant Kim coordinated the point defense systems from her station. Enemy missiles that managed to survive the electronic warfare suite were swatted aside by laser arrays that fired faster than the eye could follow. "Incoming missile wave neutralized," she announced. "Their guidance systems can't compensate for our jamming." The Krillians had built their fleet to fight other galactic species. Their tactics and technology were designed for battles against enemies with similar capabilities. They had never faced an opponent that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than limits. Commander Sullivan watched as another enemy cruiser broke apart under sustained fire. The Krillian ship had been trying to ram the Thunderbolt in a desperate suicide attack. The human point defense guns had reduced it to scrap metal before it could get within 1,000 kilometers. "It's like watching wolves attack sheep," she observed. "They have no idea what they're dealing with." Captain Morrison's expression remained grim despite their easy victory. "The Krillians are predators, Katie. They're used to picking on civilians and weaker species. But humans?" He smiled without humor. "We're apex predators who learned to build starships." The truth was that humans had approached space warfare differently than every other species in the galaxy. While others built elegant ships with sophisticated weapons, humans built brutal killing machines designed by creatures who had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. Every human warship was designed with one principle in mind: absolute overwhelming superiority. If you were going to fight, you fought to win completely and permanently. There was no such thing as a fair fight, only victory and defeat. On Kepler Station, the rescued civilians watched in awe and terror as the human ship carved through the enemy fleet. Dr. Rodriguez shook his head in amazement as another Krillian vessel exploded. "I knew humans were good at fighting," he said. "But this isn't fighting. This is extermination." Captain Martinez felt conflicted as she watched her people's military might on display. Part of her was proud that humanity could protect innocent civilians from predators like the Krillians. Another part worried about how the galaxy would react when word of this battle spread. "The Galactic Council is going to have a lot of questions about human military capabilities," she said quietly. Commander Zethkar was studying the tactical display with all 6 of his eyes. "Your people have been preparing for war while the rest of us focused on trade and diplomacy. These weapons, these defenses, they are generations ahead of anything we possess." The battle, if it could even be called that, continued for another 10 minutes. The Krillian ships tried every tactic in their playbook. They attempted coordinated attacks, ramming maneuvers, and even suicide runs with their remaining fighters. Nothing worked. The human ship moved through space like a predator hunting prey. Its guns never missed. Its shields never faltered. Its crew worked with cold efficiency, destroying enemy vessels with the same emotional detachment they might use to delete files from a computer. "Sir, the enemy formation is breaking up," reported Kim. "They're trying to scatter." Morrison nodded. "Let them run, but make sure they remember this lesson." The surviving Krillian ships began to flee in all directions. Their proud formation had collapsed into a desperate rout as each captain tried to save his own vessel. Ships that had arrived as conquerors were now running for their lives. But Captain Morrison was not finished teaching his lesson. The Thunderbolt's guns continued to fire, picking off the fleeing ships one by one. Each shot was precisely calculated to disable rather than destroy, leaving the enemy vessels crippled but not obliterated. "Why aren't you destroying them all?" asked Commander Sullivan. Morrison's eyes were cold as winter. "Because I want survivors to tell this story. I want every pirate and raider in the galaxy to know what happens when you attack human-protected civilians." The lesson was simple and brutal. Humanity would not tolerate attacks on innocent people. Anyone who chose to prey on the weak would face the full fury of human military might. And that fury was something no other species in the galaxy was prepared to handle. As the last enemy ship limped away into hyperspace, the Thunderbolt turned toward Kepler Station. The rescue operation could begin, but the real message had already been sent. Humanity had announced itself as the galaxy's new apex predator. The age of easy victims was over. What followed could not really be called a battle. It was more like a demonstration of human military superiority, conducted with surgical precision and overwhelming force. The Thunderbolt moved through the enemy formation like a shark among minnows, its weapon systems operating with deadly efficiency. The remaining Krillian ships tried everything they could think of. They attempted flanking maneuvers, concentrated fire patterns, and desperate ramming attacks. Nothing worked against the human warship's advanced defenses and superior technology. Lieutenant Chen coordinated the weapon systems from his station, his voice calm and professional as he called out targets. "Cruiser at bearing 270, distance 4,000 kilometers, firing." Another Krillian ship vanished in a flash of light as a railgun projectile tore through its hull at relativistic speed. The tungsten slug passed completely through the vessel, leaving a perfectly round hole that vented atmosphere and debris into space. "Direct hit. Target neutralized," Chen reported. "Acquiring next target." The human weapons were unlike anything the Krillians had ever faced. While most galactic species used energy-based weapons that could be defended against with proper shielding, humans preferred kinetic projectiles that simply punched through whatever stood in their way. Each railgun round carried the kinetic energy of a nuclear bomb, delivered with pinpoint accuracy at targets that could not dodge fast enough to escape. The Krillian ships designed to fight against energy weapons had no defense against this type of assault. Commander Sullivan monitored the battle from her position next to Captain Morrison. Her displays showed the systematic destruction of the enemy fleet with clinical detachment. 15 ships down to 7 and falling, Captain. They're taking heavy casualties. Morrison nodded, his expression unchanged. Continue firing. Show survivors who still have weapons capability. The captain had fought against pirates and raiders before. He knew that showing mercy to predators only encouraged them to attack again later. The only language they understood was superior firepower, applied without hesitation or remorse. Lieutenant Kim tracked incoming threats from her sensor station. Enemy fighters attempting attack run on our port side, engaging with point defense. The Thunderbolt's point defense systems came alive with devastating effect. Hundreds of laser turrets tracked the small fighter craft with computer-guided precision. The lasers fired in coordinated bursts, each beam lasting only milliseconds but carrying enough energy to vaporize a fighter completely. The Krillian pilots tried to use their speed and maneuverability to avoid the defensive fire. But the human targeting computers calculated their movements faster than they could think, predicting their evasive actions and adjusting accordingly. In less than 30 seconds, all 24 enemy fighters had been destroyed without a single one getting close enough to fire its weapons. The space around the Thunderbolt briefly glowed with the expanding clouds of superheated metal that had once been attack craft. Fighter wave eliminated, Kim reported. Point defense systems returning to stand by. On Kepler Station, the civilian observers watched the one-sided slaughter with a mixture of relief and horror. They were grateful to be saved from the Krillian attack, but the casual efficiency of the human destruction was frightening to witness. Dr. Foster stared at the tactical display showing the positions of burning enemy ships. They're not just winning, they're toying with them. The human ship could have destroyed the entire fleet in minutes if they wanted to. Captain Martinez understood what her colleague was seeing. Human military doctrine emphasizes psychological warfare as much as physical destruction. They want the survivors to spread word of what happened here. Commander Zethkar was studying the human ship's movements with professional interest. Despite his peaceful nature, he had military training and could appreciate the tactical excellence being displayed. Their coordination is perfect, he observed. Every weapon system works together like parts of a single organism. This is not just superior technology, this is superior military thinking. The Vorthan commander was correct. Human warships were designed by a species that had perfected warfare through thousands of years of constant conflict. Every system was optimized for maximum lethality and minimum risk to the ship itself. The Thunderbolt's crew worked with the smooth efficiency of a machine built for killing. They had trained for scenarios like this countless times, running simulations and drills until their responses became automatic. Enemy cruiser attempting to ram us, reported Lieutenant Chen. Permission to engage? Granted, Morrison replied. Use the main gun. The Thunderbolt's primary railgun fired again, its magnetic coils accelerating a tungsten projectile to 15% of light speed. The Krillian cruiser, committed to its suicide run, could not change course quickly enough to avoid the incoming round. The ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was a kilometer-long warship racing toward them. The next moment it was a rapidly expanding cloud of vaporized metal and energy. The shockwave from the impact rattled nearby debris but did not even register on the Thunderbolt's sensors. Target destroyed, Chen announced. No debris larger than a meter detected. The systematic annihilation continued for another 20 minutes. The Krillian fleet, which had arrived as proud conquerors, was being methodically reduced to scrap, metal, and vapor. Their weapons could not penetrate human shields. Their ships could not outrun human targeting systems. Their tactics were useless against human military doctrine. Captain Morrison watched the slaughter with cold satisfaction. This was what happened when predators met an apex predator. The Krillians had spent generations bullying weaker species, confident in their superiority. Now they were learning that there was always someone higher up the food chain. Sir, incoming transmission from the enemy fleet, reported the communications officer. They're requesting terms for surrender. Morrison considered this for a moment. Allowing some survivors would ensure that word of this battle reached other potential threats. But he wanted to make sure the lesson was thoroughly understood. Tell Them they can surrender by withdrawing immediately from this system, he said. Any ship that remains in 5 minutes will be destroyed without further warning. The communications officer relayed the message. Within seconds, the surviving Krillian ships began powering up their hyperspace drives. They were not interested in testing whether the human captain would carry out his threat. Commander Sullivan watched the enemy retreat with professional satisfaction. 7 ships escaped out of the original 20. That should be enough survivors to spread the word. Morrison nodded. Word will reach the Krillian High Command within a week. They'll think twice before attacking civilian targets in the future. As the last enemy ship vanished into hyperspace, an eerie quiet settled over the battlefield. The space around Kepler Station was littered with debris from destroyed Krillian vessels, but the human ship remained completely undamaged. The Thunderbolt had fought against 20 warships and emerged without a scratch on its hull. Its shields had never dropped below 90%. Its weapons had performed flawlessly. Its crew had operated with mechanical precision. The message was clear and terrifying. Humanity was not just another spacefaring species. They were the galaxy's new apex predator, and they would protect their own with lethal force. The battlefield fell silent except for the slow drift of metal debris that had once been proud Krillian warships. The UHS Thunderbolt moved through the wreckage field with careful precision, its sensors scanning for any remaining threats or survivors who might need rescue. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge watching as his crew transitioned from combat operations to humanitarian relief. The change was seamless, professional, and spoke to the training that had made human military forces so effective. "Damage report, Commander Sullivan," he said quietly. His executive officer checked her displays with the same calm efficiency she had shown during the battle. "Zero damage to ship systems, Captain. Some minor power fluctuations from the sustained railgun fire, but Chief Martinez says she can have everything back to optimal levels within an hour." Morrison nodded, unsurprised by the report. The Thunderbolt had been designed to handle much worse punishment than anything the Krillians could deliver. "Casualty report?" "Zero friendly casualties, sir. Medical reports no injuries among the crew." Sullivan paused, checking another screen. "Enemy casualties are estimated at over 3,000 killed, with approximately 800 survivors on the ships that escaped." The numbers were stark and brutal, but Morrison felt no satisfaction in the slaughter. He had done what was necessary to protect innocent civilians. The Krillians had chosen to attack peaceful traders and families. They had paid the price for that choice. "Launch rescue shuttles to Kepler Station," he ordered. "Begin evacuation procedures for anyone who wants to leave, and send a message to the Galactic Council informing them that this sector is now under human protection." On Kepler Station, the survivors were still trying to process what they had witnessed. The human warship had appeared from nowhere, destroyed a vastly superior enemy force, and now was offering to evacuate anyone who felt unsafe. Commander Zethkar approached Captain Martinez in the main control room. His translator struggled to convey the emotion in his voice as he spoke. "Your people, they came for us, across the void of space with no promise of reward or recognition. Why?" Martinez looked out at the human warship, its running lights cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. "Because that's what we do, Commander. When someone calls for help, humans answer." The simple truth of her words hung in the air. Humanity had traveled hundreds of light years to rescue people they had never met, from species they barely knew, simply because it was the right thing to do. Dr. Rodriguez joined them, his face still showing signs of shock from witnessing the battle. "The council representatives are going to have a lot of questions about human military capabilities after this." Martinez smiled. "Let them ask. The galaxy is about to learn something important. When you threaten innocent people, you don't just face their local defenders, you face all of humanity. And we don't lose." The first human shuttle arrived at the station an hour later. The crew that emerged was professional, courteous, and completely different from what the aliens had expected. These were not savage warriors drunk on victory. They were ordinary people doing their job with quiet competence. Lieutenant Commander Paul Davis led the rescue team. He was a tall man with kind eyes who spoke multiple galactic languages fluently. His medical team immediately began treating the wounded while his engineers assessed damage to the station's systems. "We're here to help," he told Commander Zethkar. "Anyone who wants to relocate to a safer system can come aboard the Thunderbolt. We have space for everyone and supplies to last for months." Many of the station's residents chose to evacuate, especially those with families. They had seen what happened when predators like the Krillians decided to attack. They wanted to be somewhere safer, under the protection of the galaxy's new guardians. But some chose to stay. These were mostly traders and miners who had invested their lives in this remote outpost. They trusted that the human presence would deter future attacks. Captain Morrison himself came aboard the station that evening to meet with the civilian leadership. He was not what the aliens had expected from a human military commander. He was quiet, thoughtful, and genuinely concerned about their welfare. "We're setting up a permanent patrol route through this sector," he told the assembled leaders. "Any ship flying the human flag will respond to distress calls within 6 hours. The days of easy targets are over." Dr. Foster asked the question that everyone was thinking. "What about the Galactic Council? They won't like humans taking unilateral military action." Morrison's smile was cold but not unkind. "The Council had 3 weeks to respond to your distress call. We were here in 6 days. Let them complain about our methods after they explain their failures." His point was brutally clear. The established galactic powers had failed to protect innocent civilians from predators. Humanity would not make the same mistake. As the rescue operations continued, word of the battle began to spread across the communication networks. The story grew with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. A single human warship had destroyed an entire Krillian fleet without taking damage. The news reached the Krillian High Command within a week, just as Morrison had predicted. The survivors' reports painted a picture of human military capabilities that shocked and terrified the warlike species. For the first time in their history, the Krillians faced an enemy they could not defeat through superior firepower. The humans had weapons and defenses that made Krillian technology look primitive by comparison. Emergency council sessions were called across the galaxy as various species tried to understand what humanity's emergence as a military power would mean for galactic politics. Some saw opportunity in allying with the newcomers. Others saw threat in their overwhelming superiority. But for the ordinary civilians living on remote stations and frontier colonies, the message was clear and welcome. Help was available. When predators came calling, they would face not just local defenses but the full might of human military power. Captain Morrison made one final transmission before the Thunderbolt departed Kepler Station. His words were broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every ship and station in the sector would receive them. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Human Ship Thunderbolt, to all vessels and stations receiving this transmission. Today, predators learned a simple truth that every bully eventually discovers. There's always someone bigger, stronger, and meaner than you are. And sometimes, if you're very unlucky, that someone is human." The message ended, but its impact would resonate across the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity had announced itself not with diplomacy or trade agreements, but with the thunder of railguns and the fury of those who would not stand by while innocents suffered. In the depths of space, predators learned to fear the dark, because in that darkness, humans were hunting, and they never missed their prey.